Mr. Yu Patling, thank you, Deputy President. I speak in support of the bill. There are a series of measures in the budget that would have innovation technology, empowering finance, and we will have a $30 billion injection to expedite the development of Hetal Cooperation Zone and Sandton Technopole. We will also move from the exchange fund $150 billion to the Capital Works Reserve Fund to lay solid foundations for the long-term development of Hong Kong. The budget has incorporated different suggestions of sectors of the community, and there are also some specific measures to support the people of Hong Kong to alleviate their burden. I am especially concerned about the area of culture, sports, and tourism. We will have an additional $1.66 billion for the Built Heritage Conservation Fund. There will be an additional $1 billion fund rejection. We will have for sports $1.2 billion, as well as $200 million for the Urban Rural Integration Fund. It shows that there is in-depth integration between culture, sports, and tourism. We have just gone through the tariff wars, but now we have the US-Iran war. At this critical juncture in the century, we must go on our own way with the enhancement of soft and hard powers of the country. We are on this irreversible trend, and as the most open city of the country, we need to make sure we serve the country and actively integrate into the development of the country and dovetail with the National 15 Five-Year Plan to make sure we make great contributions to the country. Recently, we have the latest data of a tourism association in the world saying that the East is indeed rising compared to the West. We have seen a 9.9% increase in tourism in China. It's much higher than that for the United States, 0.9%. In 3 to 4 years, China will come close to the rank of the United States or even surpass it to become the biggest tourism economy of the world. And we have the Ministry of Commerce and the other 8 departments in March to improve arrangements for visitors, and it has greatly enhanced visitor experience. It is very important in telling the good stories of the country. It is also helping with the enhancement of soft power of the country. As the southern gateway of the country, we have a key role to play. We need to leverage on the status of Hong Kong as a transportation and tourism hub and seize the opportunity to attract more overseas visitors to come to Hong Kong and to promote multi-destination tourism so that visitors will go on to visit mainland China after visiting Hong Kong. I would like to speak in particular on consolidating Hong Kong's status as an international aviation hub. We have international aviation hub, this positioning being on par with our other positioning, international finance center, trade center, etc. As an international aviation hub, Hong Kong needs to have connectivity with the world as well as the mainland aviation network. We need to make sure we incorporate Hong Kong's airport into the country system for airports into a 1+3+7+N layout. And we also need to make sure we have specific division of work with 7 different regions in the country, such as Shenzhen and Chongqing. I think all along, the Hong Kong International Airport needs to incorporate into the development network of the country as well as the development of the Greater Bay Area. I'm very glad to hear that the planned Shenzhen-Hong Kong Western Railway link that will extend from Tung Shui Kiu through Hong Kong International Airport to Shanghai up to Shenzhen Bao'an Airport. There will also be transfer of luggage that will be moved by the automated people mover system from Hong Kong Station to the airports. Private aviation services are an important part of the high value added economy of the city. It is also an important part of Hong Kong's status as an international aviation hub. We have the commercial charter flight network covering 429 airports. It's much higher than the 200 destinations for civil aviation network. In 2025, the charter flight network of Hong Kong dealt with 150 flights that have transported different international celebrities as well as football stars. We have the top 30 company executives, half of them making use of chartered flights to travel to different places. And we have in IPO last year, 1/4 of them being on related products and services. So chartered flight service is very important, but right now there are some difficulties in making use of chartered flights to fly to second and third tier cities of the mainland. So high value visitors will have to go to other international airports to complete clearance and then take land transport or air transport to their destination. From second and third tier cities in the mainland, if they have to come to Hong Kong, they also need to do the same. It is very time consuming. It is not efficient either. I think the government needs to work with the mainland authorities to promote development of chartered flight services. We can have pilot arrangements. We can have mutual recognition mechanism. We can even have pre-approval process so that we can truly develop into a chartered flight hub to promote headquarters economy and create further impetus for growth for the economy. On multi-destination tourism, we have the country taking on board our suggestion last year and have 4 ports of Hong Kong included into the 240-hour arrangement, and we have for Guangdong 144-hour visa arrangements. And according to the tourism board's figures, we have taken on board many visitors, 12.06 million visitors. And we have those traveling from Hong Kong to the mainland, 1.7 million of them, and 2.76 million visitors coming from the mainland to Hong Kong. And with the increasing number of overseas visitors, I believe many of them benefit from the visa arrangements. We have seen a surge in the number of visitors to the country with visa exemption arrangements, but these visitors may not come to Hong Kong. It is very important to nurture two-way multi-destination tourism arrangements. We should work with tourism cities of the country so that we'll have more international visitors come to Hong Kong so that we can create synergy. We should also make sure to have regard to the circumstances of the Middle Eastern war and have targeted promotion for certain markets. We should allocate resources to enhance synergy with tourism cities of the mainland to promote two-way, one multi-destination tourism. Energy safety is very important to national security. With the surge in oil prices, many different sectors are affected. F&B, laundry, industries are all affected by the increase in oil prices. We need to make sure there is no cascading effect in the increase of prices. I'm very glad that the government has proposed a $1.8 billion funding to provide subsidies for diesel that will help sectors. For public transport service operators, they are regulated by law, but so they are less flexible with cost controls. I hope the government can provide targeted support and have close communication with the trade. Your time is up.
Mr. Kenneth Lau, Deputy President, the budget has showcased the government's efforts in investing in the future by concentrating resources. The measures include clawing back $150 billion from the Foreign Exchange Fund to support the development projects in the Northern Metropolis, issuing debt for the development of the Northern Metropolis, establishing the NM Urban Rural Integration Fund, and so on. I support the budget on behalf of my constituency. This budget presages the development of the rural areas in a high-quality manner and has responded to the calls of my constituents. Now, the government is facing public finance pressure. However, the government is still able to adhere to the policy of prudent public funding management and spending within its means. Now, besides promoting economic recovery and talent attraction, the government is determined to continue to invest in infrastructure and land development. Now, in terms of developing infrastructure projects, the government must not neglect the welfare of indigenous New Territory residents and other livelihood issues of my constituents. The government must truly embrace the concepts of urban-rural integration, for example, enhancing drainage services, road improvements, internet services, as well as other rural infrastructure. Only by improving the living standard of New Territory residents can we ensure fairness. And concerning the continuous financial commitments to the Northern Metropolis, as well as the NM Integration Fund, the Heung Yi-Kuk gives it full support. The Northern Metropolis is the key to overcome the bottlenecks of our development and is also the front line of integration into the country's development. This year is the starting year of the 15th five-year plan. With our own five-year plan, we will transition the developments of Northern Metropolis from quantity to quality. There must also be more synergies with other Bay Area cities, including Shenzhen. Now, the government is now working full steam to introduce the dedicated legislation for the Northern Metropolis. It will be introduced into LegCo for first reading by the middle of this year. The Heung Yi-Kuk will continue to play its role to convey the views of our constituencies. Now, the $200 million allocated into the NM Urban Rural Integration Fund is an important first step. Now, the Heung Yi-Kuk thinks that the fund must be spent with the welfare of residents in mind, rather than simply going into studies and researches conducted by tertiary institutions. Residents must be actively involved in using the fund. Next, I will move on to AI Plus development. Now, the budget proposed the establishment of the Committee on AI Plus and Industry Development Strategy to study the application of AI in public departments as well as public governance as well as education of AI for all. We support this strategy. The widespread use of AI rests on the availability of infrastructure and also education for the public. In the next few years, there will be much greater demand for computing capacity. I urge the government to speed up the developments of the Sandy Ridge data center so that with its commissioning, we can tie in with the major trend in AI adoption. Now, we must plan ahead for the university town in the Northern Metropolis by introducing more curriculum involving AI to create a pool of AI talents so as to support the development of future industries. Deputy President, the 15th five-year plan gave explicit support for the 6 pillar industries in Hong Kong, among which low-altitude economy is a key driving force behind the country's development. The budget mentioned further developing low-altitude economy, including that starting from the first half of the year, there will be a traffic management system launched for small unmanned aircraft. Civil aviation legislation and regulatory framework will also be enhanced to build a robust low-altitude ecosystem. I support that. For our economy to sail long and far, we have to ensure that there are sufficient application scenarios for drones. Now, the Northern Metropolis should be used as a pilot zone for using drones for different purposes like tourism, logistics, and so on. And also, the government should study the legislation for passenger-carrying unmanned aircrafts, especially given in mind the rich blue and green resources we have. The Yanqiao Tong, as well as the Robinstead Country Park, as well as the nearby areas, should be designated as pilot zone for cross-boundary drone tourism, so as to implement the idea of tourism is everywhere. Now, I'm pleased to see that more sweeteners have been given. There are a series of alleviation measures to reduce the financial burden on employees and the middle class. Now, for the basic allowance as well as the married person's allowance, tax concession has been adjusted for the first time in the past decade, benefiting some 2.09 million people. Now, tax concession for profits tax and tax on the personal assessments has increased to $3,000, and there are also other measures, including additional month of CSSA payments. That's 1.8 times higher than the previous year. So I'm pleased to see that there are more and more tax concession measures. I suggest that the government continue to provide the $2,000 subsidy for primary and secondary school students so as to alleviate the cost of childbearing. Now, $4 billion has been reserved for those affected by the Wangfuk Court fire for their long-term accommodation, and $300 million have been dedicated to improve the smart tender platform to prevent bid rigging. The Foreign Reserve Fund has always been our bedrock. Now, after 40 years' time, the government has again took $150 billion to the Capital Works Reserve Fund, and also the debt issuance limit has been extended to support the NM development. This is a forward-looking move. It shows the government's pragmatism in promoting the long-term development of Hong Kong. Now, last year, the fund has recorded some $330 billion in investment revenue, a record high. So the amount clawed back from the Foreign Reserve Fund only accounts for half of that revenue. It is a prudent and feasible move with little impact on our financial stability and the link exchange rate system. Allocating this fund into the NM development is a move with foresight. It will ensure our competitiveness. At the same time, in order to use public funding prudently, I suggest the government cut 10,000 more civil service posts by year 2027, and also speed up the transition to digitalization and introduce AI and automation to replace repetitive clerical work so that civil servants can focus on strategy making and innovation. Overall speaking, the budget has highlighted the government's determination to be innovative and the balance struck between prudency and investment in the future. Now, we support the government's determination to develop the Northern Metropolis. We urge the government to respect history and protect the welfare of indigenous residents and allow Hong Kong to soar with the National 15th Five-Year Plan. Mr. Alvin Lee, Deputy President, in recent years, Hong Kong has been facing internal and external challenges. While ensuring expenditure is kept within means, the government has struck a balance between investment and stability. It rests upon the government's ability to assess the situation accurately. Now, with the thriving stock markets, stamp duty income has played an important role in eliminating our deficit. Now, this is the starting year of the National 5-Year Plan. We must seize the good start and consolidate our foundation for emerging industries. We need to give play to our role as a bridgehead between the country and the world, and also strengthen our financial system, actively aligning with the National Development Blueprint. I agree with the budget. It is a well thought through budget with pragmatism. It shows the government has paid heed to the needs of the people as well as for development. It covers mid to long-term investment as well as micro management. Now, I will first talk on the overall area and then move on to my own areas, including concerning culture and other areas. Now, I thank the Financial Secretary and his team for accepting one of my proposals to alleviate the financial burden faced by the sandwich class. Personal tax allowance has been increased, as well as dependent parents and grandparents allowances. Now, altogether, these sweeteners have been 1.8 times more than the previous years, involving some $22 billion. Now, within the government's limits, the government has successfully alleviated the financial burden faced by the sandwich class, showing the care it has for the middle class. However, we are ushering in an ultra-old society. The burden on social welfare system and healthcare system is ever more heavy. Now, there must be more tax concession measures for the three tools of retirement, as well as the annuity program, to ensure that the public coffer is still healthy. Now, in terms of macro thinking, I applaud the government for investing aggressively in the Northern Metropolis to lay the foundation for the next 20 to 30 years development. Now, the Northern Metropolis has been written into the National 15th Five-Year Plan. At the same time, at this stage where AI is rapidly developing, a number of measures have been launched to enhance the AI know-how of the public, enhancing the competitiveness of our workforce. Now, first on the Northern Metropolis planning, the budget proposed to raise the debt limits of the two bonds program, that is Sustainability Bonds Program and the Infrastructure Bonds Program, from $500 billion to $900 billion, covering the long-term funding needs of the Northern Metropolis. That echoes my call for aligning the size of debt issuance with our infrastructure projects. Now, for Singapore and New Zealand, these governments also fund their long-term infrastructure projects through long-term debt issuance. Now, in year 2030 to 31, the debt to GDP ratio will be raised to 19.9%, but it's still significantly lower than other advanced economies. It is still manageable. Now, I've paid a visit to the Northern Metropolis with other colleagues. I tangibly felt the robust developments of the I&T ecosystem in the area. I hope that with the funding raised with the debt issuance, a solid foundation can be laid for the Northern Metropolis. For AI, $50 million has been allocated to invite professional organizations to organize talks, courses, and competition to raise the awareness among students and the public. But we must not neglect the SMEs, accounting for 98% of our businesses, are still find the use of AI underwhelming. The adoption rate is slow. In different industries, the readiness for AI as well as know-how of the employees are different. So the government should conduct a more comprehensive study concerning the AI adoption rate for different industries and understand the SME's difficulties in adopting AI, provide more support measures to ensure that AI is really adopted. Now, for civil service, the civil service establishments will be reduced by 2% for 2 consecutive financial years, so as to, and also the productivity enhancement program will be implemented. Civil servant salary will be reviewed according to standing mechanism. Now, the government must also maintain the morale of the civil service. So a multi-pronged approach has to be adopted to enhance the morale of the civil servants and equip them to adopt innovative methods to deliver their tasks so as to benefit the public. Now, in the following, I will talk on my own area, that is cultural developments. Now, the culture and creative industry is very important in unleashing our potential. Now, the 15th Five-Year Plan mentioned that we need to deepen Hong Kong as a melting pot of East and Western culture. It shows that the country has acknowledged our previous efforts in developing our cultural ecosystem. Now, it is important for us to make use of our position as a platform to tell good stories of Hong Kong and the country. Now, there are the Create Smart initiative and also the Film Development Fund. Some $9 billion have been invested into these funding schemes. Now, the government must move away from a small government mindset and become the main engine for driving growth in these industries. It must help our creative industry to tap overseas markets and promote cross-sectoral collaboration. The government must listen closely to the needs of the sector to ensure that the resources are spent on seizing the closing opportunities. Now, back in 2009, the government already mentioned that we need to industrialize our cultural industry. We need to continue along that line of thought. Now, $100 million has been set aside to attract famous international exhibitions with innovative elements to come to Hong Kong. We can do the same for the creative industry. Now, the country positions Hong Kong as the regional intellectual property center. Now, the government should organize more quality exhibitions on our cultural products. Now, the country has some major exhibitions. For example, the country's book fair and cultural product show. We can attract these exhibitions to be held in Hong Kong so as to boost both the cultural sector and the larger economy. Now, the country has implemented a new law on reading. The vision is to build a society which is well-read. Now, we need to help the country to become a cultural powerhouse. Now, this year's budget has no measures to support reading. I'm quite disappointed. However, with the leadership of the country, we need to align with the new legislation, and we cannot neglect the importance of reading. Now, on the 25th of March, I proposed a members' motion to promote territory-wide reading. In the era of AI, all the more we need to read, because only with critical thinking and knowledge can we turn AI into our assistants rather than competitors. This is extremely crucial for primary and secondary students. Now, I hope that the government can enhance resources on building a culture of reading to improve the cultural ecosystem. Now, this year, we are still faced with challenging external situation. We need to be swift and steady in sailing the ship. We must be swift in dealing with international changes. For example, we need to subsidize the energy cost to consolidate our position as different centers. Now, we need to be targeted in investments. Besides Northern Metropolis, we need to invest in the people as well so as to help Hong Kong become a society which takes care of the people. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Lau Ka-Kung. Thank you, Deputy President. We are at the critical juncture of economic reconstructing and consolidation. External environment is volatile and ever-changing. Geopolitical tensions are mounting. We are striking a balance between developing the local economy and benefiting local people. And we are going by the principle of cutting costs and creating more income streams. We need to seize upon the strategic opportunities brought about by the 15th Five-Year Plan. This responds to the calls in society in different areas. I thank the Financial Secretary for adopting a lot of the suggestions made by G19 and me myself. I'm going to share my views on different fronts. 1. Cut costs, create more income streams, and invest in future. The consolidating account had recorded deficit for 3 years in a row, and in 26 year, finally we have turned from red to black. This is encouraging, and as we have seen a fiscal surplus 3 years earlier, and the deficit is still $104 billion, accounting for 3% of the GDP. This percentage is still lower than the advanced economies, but it shows that our fiscal position is still not stable yet. We need to bear in mind what Director Xia Baolong said. We need to be mindful of the risks affecting the prosperity and stability of Hong Kong. The conflicts in the Middle East have caused a spike in oil prices worldwide. This has exerted a heavier burden on the operation of the transport sector in Hong Kong, as well as the burden on members of the public. The government has speedily set up a task force and implemented relief measures. This is worth our recognition and acknowledgement, but it also shows that we need to construct a protection mechanism, and this is key to Hong Kong. That is why I agree with the direction of the budget to invest in the future, relating to investment in infrastructure. We need to increase the ceiling to $900 billion, and it is expected that in 2030, the debt to GDP ratio of Hong Kong will be about 19.9%. This is still a very healthy level. Under the budget, it is still clearly set out that the proceeds of bond issuance will be used to support infrastructure instead of to meet daily expenses or the expenses of the government. In order to achieve break-even in the long term, it is important to grow large the economic pie and to promote the high-quality development of the economy. We also need to tie in with the 15th Five-Year Plan. We are in the middle of the changes unseen in a century. China has become the main source of stability of global economic growth. Hong Kong has the staunch support of our country. Our country has provided a safe and stable investment environment for Hong Kong. This is the beginning year of the 15th Five-Year Plan of our country. Our country has given us the new strategic position of 4 centers in 1 hub. The government is going to formulate the first 5-year plan by the end of this year. This plan should be scientific and forward-looking. On the one hand, it is expected that the government will proactively promote enterprises to go global. We need to play our role of attracting enterprises to come in and helping them to go global. This is a dual function of our platform. On the other hand, the Northern Metropolis has been incorporated into one of the salient points of the 15th Five-Year Plan of our country. We need to serve our country and make contributions to our country. We also need to speed up the development of the Northern Metropolis, which is the main driver of growth. It is also a key platform for Hong Kong to integrate into the national development. This March, the Hong Kong government has introduced to the Council the dedicated Northern Metropolis legislation. This shows the dedication and resolve of the administration. We need to promote industrial innovation, and we need to put Northern Metropolis in the foremost position. Recently, I've been in touch with the industry, and they look forward to having more details. At present, when it comes to infrastructure development and investment, the government has done a lot to remove barriers. Regarding people flow, we have seen development among the 4 flows. People are expecting capital flow logistics flow, data flow, there will be fleshed out details in the mechanism. It is hoped that the government will speed up discussions with the relevant counterpart in the Chinese mainland so that we can realize cross-boundary scientific data, including biosamples. We need to let the public feel the new opportunities that the Northern Metropolis will bring. Next, on education, technology, and talent, we need to promote the coordinated development in these areas. Hong Kong is the only city that boasts 5 top 100 universities around the world. High-quality education is exactly what pulls talent to Hong Kong. Hong Kong has already set up the task force on studying in Hong Kong. The budget has set aside $10 billion to support the construction of the Northern Metropolis University Town. But in order to develop Hong Kong into an international education hub, we need to deepen the collaboration among the industry, academia, research, and so on. It is hoped that the government will publish the development outline of the NM University Town as soon as possible. The government should work with financial organizations, universities to promote this initiative and to provide tax concessions and so on. We need to develop Hong Kong into a high-caliber talent hub. Moving on to population changes, we are seeing some challenges and changes. Hong Kong has a double whammy of an aging population and a low birth rate. AI is also affecting the labor market. The Employees Retraining Board has been upgraded to Upskills Hong Kong, and this is indeed an important step in enhancing the competitiveness of Hong Kong. It is expected that the government will take one more step. We need to formulate a well-rounded population policy. Within Hong Kong, we need to encourage a more friendly environment to childbirth. We also need to further provide childcare services. We need to ease the pressure on parents. At the same time, we need to continue to attract foreign talent to Hong Kong, to settle down in Hong Kong so that we can really draw for talent, but at the same time, we can keep these talent in Hong Kong. This is our ultimate goal. In the end, when it comes to teenage development, presidency encourages that teenagers need to seize upon the opportunities brought by the 15th Five-Year Plan. There should be more overseas exchange opportunities. But in order to make young people willing to fight, we need to give them upward mobility. We also need to provide adequate support. I expect that the government will continue to implement the measures under the Youth Development Blueprint so that they can remove different barriers in relation to studies, entrepreneurship, investment, and so on. The Northern Metropolis is a place where they can realize their dreams. This year is the critical year where Hong Kong is moving from stability to prosperity. We definitely need to use our position as a safe port to turn it to a development hub. This is only how we can pursue development in changes unseen in a century. I also submit I support the Appropriation Bill 2026. Thank you. Mr. Andrew Yao. Thank you, Deputy President. Our external trade is doing well. Private investment is seeing a rebound. Fixed assessment is increasing as well. We are seeing overall economic growth for 3 years in a row. This is indeed good momentum. Regarding external trade, the growth 34% and 25% respectively. We are seeing significant growth. When it comes to the WTO, the commodities total amount is $1.59 trillion, and we are rising to the 5th position around the world. This is a strong boost in the arm. Geopolitical tensions are volatile. Oil prices have spiked due to the conflict around the world. SMEs are in dire straits. Well, we're glad to see different SME measures, including Bud Fund $200 million, and the application threshold has been increased from $100,000 to $150,000. We are also seeing different policies in relation to supporting enterprises in Hong Kong. Hong Kong is an externally oriented economy. We are facing complicated and external changes. It is not easy for us to develop new businesses. When the business environment wasn't so good, we needed to limit ourselves. However, the economy is picking up. I hope that the government will give SMEs more breathing space. We need to help SMEs to obtain support more easily. Not just 360,000 SMEs, but it also has to do with the jobs of 1.2 million wage earners in Hong Kong. We need to help local enterprises to upgrade and transform. I support the establishment of the AI Plus and Industrial Development Strategy Committee. I also support the NIAS, that is the New Industrialization Funding Scheme. I also support the New Industrialization Elite Enterprises Nurturing Scheme. It nurtures high-performing enterprises in Hong Kong that contribute to new industrialization. This has a proactive role to play. The development of Hong Kong has a lot to do with the Northern Metropolis. Director Xia Baolong referred to the first 5-year plan of Hong Kong. It needs to be scientific and forward-looking. The Northern Metropolis will be centered on education and technology. It promotes coordination among the industry, academia, and research. We need to promote the coordinated development of education, technology, and talent. The Northern Metropolis University Town will have 9 hectares of land, and it will be commissioned soon. I expect part of the land can be set aside for local young people for incubation and development. It can also become an innovation park of universities. The Northern Metropolis is close to the GBA. We need to give full play to this geographical advantage. In Shenzhen, there are many startups. When it comes to application scenarios and products, they will come across problems. Universities in Hong Kong should think how to better application. We need to help universities in Hong Kong to solve their pain points. These companies will also set up branches and set up a presence in Hong Kong. I believe this will lead to complementarity between enterprises in Hong Kong and those in the Chinese mainland. I'd like to talk about helping SMEs to go global. Together with the Chinese General Chamber of Commerce, I have been helping our country to open up. We're also helping local enterprises to go global. Hong Kong should be made the priority base for mainland enterprises to go global. I'm glad to see the Go Global Task Force will attract mainland enterprises to go global through Hong Kong. The Trade Development Council last week had a platform focusing on helping enterprises to go global, covering finance, accounting, taxation, commerce, information, logistics, transportation, design, market promotion. Different types of information is provided on this platform. It's like the yellow page that we had in Hong Kong in the past. But when they are listed on the platform, how can we facilitate transactions and businesses? For enterprises in the mainland, will they be spoiled for choice? I suggest that the government should make good use of the network of chambers of commerce. Professional services are indeed what mainland enterprises need in order to go global. We need to do well in interfacing. It is expected that we can hold some expos to help enterprises to go global. What we need to help is the giants in mainland enterprises, including state-owned enterprises in the mainland. I suggest the ETOs in China, in mainland ETOs need to give a hand. I'm glad to see the announcement of the relevant packages later on. First of all, industry, 2, technology level, and 3, economic benefits that will be brought to Hong Kong, and 4, employment. These will be factored in when it comes to the provision of tax concessions. I hope that this will pull more enterprises and will be attractive to them. We need to cement our position as an international financial center and an international shipping and logistics hub. We cannot afford to be a one-trick pony. Regarding the throughput, we are seeing a decrease. We need to develop Hong Kong into a smart port to develop high-value added maritime services. I hope that Hong Kong will continue to work with the ports in the Chinese mainland. In March, I made a suggestion as an MPC deputy that in Shenzhen, Yantian, and Nansha, we need to develop ourselves into a combined port, hence increasing the throughput of the ports in Hong Kong. At the same time, we also need to shorten the time of waiting at the ports in Hong Kong. In relation to building an international gold market, the government said that the government would provide tax concessions to eligible organizations. This is indeed a good policy. I hope this will further boost the development of gold market in Hong Kong. At the same time, I also support the expansion of the storage facilities at Hong Kong International Airport. We need to move faster. The Central People's Government should also put more gold storage from China to Hong Kong. This will further cement our position as an international gold market. This will also make the gold market activities more buoyant. In Hong Kong, the market sentiments are improving. External exports are doing better. This is exactly the critical juncture at which we develop our economy. We need to drive high-quality, inclusive growth with innovation and finance. We need to drive economic diversification. I hope that the government will provide more assistance and support to local enterprises so that we can continue to make contributions to society, and we will be the major momentum to boost local economic development. I speak in support of the Appropriation Bill 2026.
Mr. Jimmy, thank you, Deputy President. I speak in support of the Appropriation Bill 2026. The Financial Secretary's budget's theme is driving high-quality, inclusive growth with innovation and finance. I think we need to make sure we expedite development so that we are investing in the future. We have years of fiscal deficits. It is indeed a headache, but now we see the light at the end of the tunnel in terms of public finance. At the start of the budget, the financial secretary said we should really make good use of the trend and start boosting the economy. And the National 15 5-year plan says specifically Hong Kong is supported in its integration into the development of the country, and we can really develop finance and build a modern industrial system and help with the country's high quality opening up. We should also actively develop the Northern Metropolis, build a world-class innovation and technology center, and set up the university town to attract talents. This is in line with the National 15 5-year plan. The budget incorporates 70 recommendations of the BPA covering the economy, INT, and livelihood policies. And I would in particular like to focus on the development of the Northern Metropolis as well as the convention and exhibition industry. It is important to make sure we have adequate resources. For 2 years, we will have funds move from the exchange fund to support infrastructure projects such as the Northern Metropolis. and other infrastructure projects. We will issue bonds for the development of the Northern Metropolis, and we will set up the Northern Metropolis Urban Rural Integration Fund that will promote rural tourism. It is some innovative approach to promote investment into the Northern Metropolis. But we see rapid changes in technology, and we have seen the changes in technology reshaping the landscape. We need to make sure we embrace change and innovate. I 100% support the expedition of development of the Northern Metropolis. The BPA is working with different sectors to attract more enterprises to set up operations in the Hetao zone, and the financial secretary actively responded to this. I'm very happy about it. The development of Northern Metropolis cannot rely only on sole efforts. We need to make sure there is synergy with the INT infrastructure with the Greater Bay Area. We need to make sure there is a matching and collaboration platform for enterprises in the Greater Bay Area. I hope that the governments on two sides to open up the Hetao port as soon as possible and have round-the-clock clearance. We should also have dedicated green channels to promote smooth flow of factor inputs. We should also develop characteristic tourism. We can make good use of the beautiful scenery of the Northern Metropolis. We should introduce film and TV concepts. We can perhaps have a technology park on film and TV that will make for a new attraction, and we can make use of the unique charm of film and TV to attract visitors to the Northern Metropolis. We also have some new venues for filming, and we can really polish the brand of Hong Kong cinema and TV. It can also promote the synergistic development of the film and TV industry within the Greater Bay Area and promote cultural exchanges. We are killing multiple birds with one stone, so I hope the financial secretary will consider this. About new industrialization, the budget proposes to reserve $220 million to have the first manufacturing innovation center of the country off the mainland. And the administration also has plans to launch new industrialization elite enterprises nurturing scheme to support the sustainable development of new industrialization. I really appreciate this. There are also plans to conduct studies for the mid to long-term development of new industries, and the sector definitely supports this. We hope to have the relevant measures as soon as possible to provide clear development directions for the industries. I urge the government to take an extra step to take a survey of economic activities of new industries so that we can set up an index. The BPA also supports enhancement of the new industrialization schemes to lower the application thresholds and to simplify the application procedures and relax the matching ratio from 1:2 to 1:1. I hope that the government departments will show through action their priority for local brands in procurement. On Monday, we heard some good news about attraction of enterprises and investment. We have the Oasis announcing the 6th batch of enterprises introduced into Hong Kong, 22 of them, including AI, fintech, advanced manufacturing, creative industry companies. We have not many top-notch enterprises coming to Hong Kong because they want to seize the opportunity of development of the Northern Metropolis. Regarding family offices, the budget proposes some tax enhancement arrangements so as to enhance Hong Kong's status as an asset and wealth management center. Last month, the BPA announced some proposals to have measures dovetailing with the country's 5-year plan, and we have to one of them to develop derivative markets to expand business of family offices. We also propose to enhance relevant arrangements by relaxing the restrictions on investment property. Lastly, on the development of convention exhibition industry, $100 million is reserved in the budget to attract large-scale international exhibitions of innovative elements to come to Hong Kong. This will really help support the industry, polish the brand, and attract more business visitors, as well as benefit other industries. I hope the administration can do more to have more targeted measures, for example, to have more convention exhibition facilities, including phase 2 of the Asia World Expo. The Northern Metropolis must also have a large-scale, high-class exhibition facility in future. On livelihood policy, we have some tax concessions, increasing of tax allowances, as well as deduction limits that should alleviate the burden on the middle class. I very much appreciate them. I so submit. Captain Lothair Lam. President, I speak in support of the Appropriation Bill 2026. I think this budget is pragmatic and forward-looking. It shows that the government has really changed its way of thinking from having the government play minimal role and they're just a regulator and service provider. They have now become more proactive to really be a pioneer. And we have all along practiced the philosophy of keeping expenditure within the limits of revenue. We now have more diversified revenue sources and industrial sectors. We now rely not only on the traditional industries, but also make good use of innovation and technology. Before, we would focus on poverty alleviation, providing social welfare. Now we have diversified welfare policies, and we adopt the principle of affordable users pay. The budget has proposed a number of measures in relation to the transportation, aviation, and logistics trades. It really shows that the government is taking a policy-led approach. In terms of maritime transport, we have the government providing half-rate tax concessions to eligible commodity traders to promote relevant services development, and $34 million has been reserved as an incentive to promote green fuel bunkering in Hong Kong so that Hong Kong can develop into a green maritime fuel bunkering and trading center. Singapore and South Korea have provided similar incentives to respond to the targets set by the International Maritime Organization for carbon emissions by 2050. And the government provides tax concessions as well as cash incentives. This is a two-pronged approach to enhance competitiveness of Hong Kong in green shipping. It will bring about returns to the city. It will consolidate and enhance Hong Kong as an international shipping center. It will also benefit Hong Kong in its development as an international finance and trading center, as commodities are traded mostly in futures, and if they are settled in Hong Kong, it can benefit the financial sector. Let me first declare here, President, the shipping company I serve is also a beneficiary of the relevant policy measures. With the commissioning of free one-way system, we have doubled our capacity before. We want to consolidate Hong Kong's status as an international aviation hub. We need to develop more passenger and cargo sources. I support the budget's measures in having more civil aviation agreements with different regions, especially those with development potential, as well as to develop the markets of Africa, Central and South America, as well as Belt and Road countries, as well as Central Asian countries, because they are important and friendly partners of the country. The budget also proposes to expand the waiver arrangements for transshipment cargo, so that for transshipment cargo going through intermodal transport, they can travel directly from Dongguan Pier to Hong Kong International Airport. We will see transshipment cargo throughput increase to 1 million tons. We should also see an increase in cargo throughput undergoing transshipment in the Kuai-Ching container terminals. We should have an additional 500,000 TEUs. how we will impose restrictions for such cargo so that the cargo can't enter public road networks to make sure it won't enter the Hong Kong market. We will have GPS system and advanced monitoring systems. The technology is at a mature stage. I hope that in future, when we have smooth operations of applications of such technology, we can allow cargo to enter the public road network of Hong Kong to make Hong Kong into an international smart logistics hub. We have the smart logistics acceleration program. The logistics sector support relevant plans. We will have a logistics circle that will tie in with the Shanghai Cooperation Zone. We will have in the logistics circle simple processing procedures. These measures are good examples of having innovation empower the logistics sector, but we need to make sure we have support both in up, mid, and downstream. We need to relocate certain operations with the construction of the logistics circle. We need to provide support to those affected. We also lack automated logistics warehouses in urban areas. We need higher ceilings for such facilities. We need to provide appropriate support to existing operators so that the trade, especially SMEs, can see sustainable development. For the continuous development of the logistics and transportation sectors, we need talents. But right now, we lack technical talents. We can introduce mainland overseas talents, but in the end, we need to train talents locally. I hope the government will allocate more resources in future to enhance collaboration between the sectors and institutions to alleviate the manpower gap. President, as the Financial Secretary said, we see complex geopolitics. 4 days after the announcement of budget, we have seen the Middle Eastern war break out, and we had been actively developing the Middle Eastern market, but with the war, we have seen great changes in the global supply chain. The downstream industrial chain is especially hit hard. With the spike in oil prices, it has caused a significant impact on the transportation sector. I believe it may affect the original economic forecasts. I think the Financial Secretary decides to disperse a special subsidy of $1.8 billion. So it's just $3 subsidy per liter of diesel. It may not be a lot, but I think the sector thanks the government for shouldering their burden. International geopolitical tensions are now the new normal. We should not be led by the increase in oil prices. Before the expiry of the 2-month period for subsidies, if the oil prices still stand high, the government should provide short-term support for those affected. And if citizens have to suffer from the higher transportation prices, I hope that the government can provide some sort of support in response to increase in transport fares. There should potentially be a fund set up for energy stabilization as a long-term mechanism in response to high oil prices. We should also provide support to EVs and the use of green fuels. We can then lower charging costs and provide more incentive for people to make use of new fuels and EVs. $80 billion were allocated by the government to promote electric minibuses. We still have $55 million left. We should make good use of that to promote green transport. Faced with complex geopolitics, if Hong Kong is on its own, it is not ideal. Hong Kong needs to really reinforce its 8 centers positioning. We need to dovetail with the plans of the country. We should be a part of the plan and have synergy with neighboring cities to generate greater benefits for the city. In the next few months, I will make proposals and I will help consult relevant stakeholders in the transportation and logistics sector for the city's promulgation of its 5-year plan to make sure we can dovetail with the National 15 5-year plan to bring about the continuous development of the city and help serve the country's development. So I'm speaking in support of the bill.
Ms. Maggie Chan. President, I speak in support of the Appropriation Bill 2026. This year's budget has sought developments amid stability. It shows that the government is determined to make use of Hong Kong's strength in integrating with the national development blueprint while alleviating livelihood problems. I recognize the efforts made by the government. I thank the government for accepting several of my suggestions. I will speak on the legal sector, women development, and also patriotic education. In terms of law, the government the nation supports Hong Kong to become a regional dispute resolution hub and also a hub of high-quality talent. I fully support the government's efforts in promoting local mediation and dispute resolution services. Now, in terms of arbitration, we shouldn't just focus on sports disputes, arbitration, and mediation. We have to make use of the geographic advantage of the northern metropolis, especially the Loop area, to create an international arbitration hub and attract arbitrators from around the world to establish in the Loop and attract a large number of parties to come to Hong Kong. That will create development opportunities for our legal sector. Second, the government should also promote the adoption of law tech by the legal sector. Now, in terms of supporting law firms to adopt law tech, there should be a fund. The government should reactivate the fund to support SMEs and larger firms to speed up transitioning. Now, more resources should be dedicated to the Hong Kong International Legal Talents Training Academy to train up foreign-related law talents. These will be talents with an international perspective. They will have a focus on international law compliance in terms of maritime as well as foreign-related law. There should be thematic studies on frontier legal research areas. There should be online and offline collaboration with foreign legal talents to train up more talents. Fourth, I support the government in supporting mainland enterprises to go global through our legal profession. Now, for SMEs, professional service providers, which are not included on the list, for example, small to medium law firms and barristers, there should be another pragmatic electronic platform to help promote their business. Now, moving on to women. All along, I have been calling for the government to promote comprehensive development for women. Now, I support that the additional $30 million funding for the Women Empowerment Fund. There's also the program on women's career development, showing the government's determination to promote women's development. Now, this will help enhance the awareness on women's physical and mental health. Now, I support enhancing the screening service for osteoporosis for women. Now, this involves a number of bureaus, for example, the HYAB, LWB, and the Health Bureau. Now, given this cross-bureau portfolio, there should be a blueprint for women's development to enhance high-level coordination for sufficient resources. Now, I'm pleased to see that the government has been enhancing the information platform for families and women. Now, on the existing mechanism, we should enhance the collaboration with the mainland authorities and establish a one-stop digital platform for women's development for the Bay Area so as to maximize the synergy. Now, I suggest that the Family Council, the Women's Committee, as well as the Community living rooms collaborate with each other to enhance promotion of positive family value. More manpower should be given to these organizations. Now, according to the government, the usage rate of the child care center across the territory is uneven. For some districts, the usage rate is at full capacity. For some, it is underwhelming. Now, while increasing the quota of service places, the government should take into account the changes in local demographic situation and also the number of newborn babies, so as to alleviate burden on women. Now, on silver economy, I'm pleased to see the number of measures which will promote silver economy. However, the government is still yet to offer us with an overall budget and also the breakdown for the working group on promoting silver economy. There is only an overall amount. Now, there should be a breakdown of the funding spent on individual areas. There should be a clear strategy announced as well as how the funding is used in specific items. For example, retirement financial products and also establishing a mutual recognition mechanism for cross-boundary retirement. We have to develop the silver financial products markets to benefit our own elderly population. Now, on the premise of compliance with personal data privacy laws, we should attach more manpower to identify and establish a database for singleton and doubleton elderly households. Now, patriotic education is of utmost importance. First of all, on promoting the Chinese culture and patriotism. This is very important. This will consolidate the national identity for our youth. Now, at the special sessions, I've been asking the government on the progress of patriotic education. However, the government replied in that no specific breakdown and estimates can be offered on patriotic education. Now, the working group on patriotic education and the Office of Promoting Chinese Culture should set aside a dedicated ratio of funding for patriotic education. Joint activities should be organized, for example, patriotic tours and also immersive VR-assisted museum docent services. That will help build family and patriotic values. On other aspects, President, the budget has a number of measures to alleviate the financial burden on middle-class families and child rearing, but that's not enough. I suggest establishing a tax concession quota for childbirth and also for employment of foreign domestic helper. The government should also consider enhancing the amount of elderly healthcare vouchers. Everything is expensive, including healthcare for elderly people. Now, under the Community Care Fund, there should be an item for supporting the elderly war veterans. We need to take care of our old and young all the same. Now, we should implement the heads of departments accountability system and deepen the reform on civil service management and assessment. We have to enhance our governance capability according to the law. President, the government is prepared to formulate its own 5-year plan. The target is to actively coordinate and align with the national 15th five-year plan. Like the central government, we have to invest in our people and our human capital. We need to promote high-quality development while promoting common prosperity for everyone in Hong Kong. I call on the government and our colleagues to work together for that purpose. I shall submit. Mr. Andrew Fan. Thank you, President. I speak in support of the Appropriation Bill 2026. I support the budget announced by the Financial Secretary. This budget comes under the context where Hong Kong is experiencing economic recovery and the fiscal position is getting better, and also the start of the National 15th Five-Year Plan. The budget proposed to initiate reforms to develop our industries, protect our people, and also invest in new quality productive forces. I support the budget. The National 15th Five-Year Plan stipulates that Hong Kong must adhere to the principle of one country, two systems, and patriots administering Hong Kong. We have to give play to our important roles as a superconnector between the country and the world. As a result, a number of measures are in line with that direction. I will speak on R&D development, industry blueprints, talents and education, and protection of livelihood. Now, the budget has designated the Northern Metropolis as the core growth engine for the future, and also the government will implement AI for all education. That is completely in alignment with the national opportunity of AI transitioning. The Northern Metropolis has been upgraded to a national strategy. We must exhaust every means to grow the cake bigger. We have to provide the staunch support for the country's, for commercialization of the country's research and scientific outcomes. Now, $10 billion will be injected into each of the hotel park and as well as the Sentinel Pole. This will help major R&D enterprises to set its footprints in Hong Kong, but we must have KPIs for these enterprises. We must regularly report the achievements made by these R&D enterprises so that everyone, including young people, can see the potential in Northern Metropolis. On the other hand, talents are always the most important capital for society. I fully support the AI Plus initiative, including the $50 million for strengthening AI education. $2 billion will be set aside under the Quality Education Fund to support AI education in secondary school. R&D race rests upon the availability of talents. By eliminating the digital gap and enhancing our AI capabilities, we can ensure that the Northern Metropolis can be developed rapidly. I'm also concerned about industry transformation. Emerging industries will be given a boost by the budget to align with the national strategy. I support that. But I suggest the Financial Secretary to pay attention to two areas to activate our potential in new quality productive forces. First, aviation. In paragraph 140, the Financial Secretary mentioned that we have to develop Hong Kong into the first aircraft parts trading and development center. I support that. The National 15th Five-Year Plan supports aviation industry to grow. The country's own C919 model has been launched into the market. Now we need to develop aircraft industries in terms of aircraft dismantling as well as repairing to turn Hong Kong into an MRO, that is maintenance and repair base for the aircraft industry. Now, our neighbor, Singapore, has been providing incentives in terms of taxation and land to draw aviation businesses. We have to catch up and create a comprehensive aviation industry chain. The second area of potential is maritime economy. We have the most prestigious ports. We have a very long coastal line and also outlying islands as our blue and green resources. We have great potential. So besides continue to develop Hong Kong into a green maritime and logistics center, we should explore the potential of maritime economy. For example, creating a commodity trading ecosystem for maritime, scientific, and pharmaceutical products. The government should also tap the potential of our outlying islands through smart water transport and low-altitude economy. We can link up the outlying islands. We can even build bridges between the outlying islands to encourage island-hopping tourism so that our maritime resources can become our economic pillar. The country has emphasize the importance to promote the integrated development of talent, education, and industry. That is also our key direction. I fully support the budget in speeding up the development of the Northern Metropolis University town to create an international education hub. I suggest the government allocates more resources to enhance the development of talent accommodation and other hostel facilities. The Education Bureau is ready to collect data and also help the financing of universities. Now, there should be more financing channels to speed up the development of the university town so that we can promote development of our city with education. Now, security is the premises for development, and development is the safeguard for security. We need to keep to the bottom line of national security, and we need to start with the most basic education. We need to strengthen patriotic education and civil education. There should be a dedicated fund to support curriculum design, teacher training, and also exchange tours so that teaching staff and students have opportunities to witness firsthand the developments of the country to strengthen their sense of belonging. Only by strengthening the base of patriotism can we unleash the potential of development. Finally, on livelihood. The race concession as well as tax concession proposed by the budget have highlighted the government's promise to be human-centric. I fully support them. However, I also call on the government to continue to strengthen tax arrangements to further alleviate the financial burden for the middle class. I have 3 proposals for the government's consideration. First, promoting a progressive children allowance mechanism. This idea is supported by many members in the council. It will address the aging population in Hong Kong, and it is necessary. Second, we should enhance the tax concession for dependent parents. For example, we can expand the tax concession to more than 1 child, and also the additional tax concession for children living with parents to other children living in the same housing estates or the same area with their parents. That will encourage children to take care of their parents. 3, we should enhance the arrangements of provisional tax payments so that we can alleviate the cash flow burden on the middle class. Now, on these areas, the government can enhance the policies so that the fruits of economic development can be shared more equally. Overall speaking, the budget has taken into account the actual situation of Hong Kong and the country's development. We are driving industry development through transformation and technology, and we are unifying people through care. We are investing in the future, and we should support this budget. With the budget, I believe that Hong Kong can fully take forward the principle of one country, 2 systems, and also contribute to the country more under the 15th Five-Year Plan while creating happiness for everyone in Hong Kong. I so submit I support the Appropriation Bill 2026.
Mr. Alan Chan. Thank you, Chairman. This year's budget, its theme is driving high-quality, inclusive growth with innovation and finance. It has taken on board the views of many members, including the view or the proposal I submitted about building a financial center as well as a tourism center for the coming 10 years. I am happy that the government has taken on board my suggestions. The budget is not just to plan for the coming year. It is a development blueprint. According to the National 15th Five-Year Plan, we have more aggressive targets compared to the 14th Five-Year Plan. We do not have to only integrate into the overall development of our country, but we have to serve our country. Our country, for the first time in the National 15th Five-Year Plan, says that we are a strategic point in terms of our financial center. I have some views on the budget. I'm not going to speak in detail about the budget. Instead, I'd like to talk about 4 strategic levels. First, formulating a 10-year plan for our financial sector. We have to catch up with the Western countries. Currently, the financial spectrum in Hong Kong focuses a lot on the stock market and IPO market. According to information in 2025, daily turnover increased by 99% to $250 billion, and the IPO amount doubled to $280 billion. Also, we see an increase of 55% in terms of our stamp duty on stock transaction. This is great news, but it also shows our weaknesses because we rely a lot on the volatile stock market in terms of revenue. On the other hand, in terms of physical commodity derivatives and so on, we are falling behind Singapore. And in terms of securities market, equity market, we are falling behind Tokyo. So I think we need a more comprehensive 5-year plan. We have to surpass Singapore and Japan to become the biggest center for physical commodity trading in Asia. Tokyo is ranked the second in terms of its Asian equity market and is second to our country. Then we have to surpass the UK as well as the US. We have to dovetail with the euro-dollar market. There are over 11,000 trillion RMB of debt and bonds, and we have to catch up with New York. I think we have to have more stronger connectivity with the physical commodities market in other places. We have to incorporate sovereign bonds as well as REIT into the connectivity scheme. And we also have to incorporate them into the gold clearing market. Also, we have to deepen the bond issuance market. The budget suggests that the bond issuance should increase from $700 to $900 billion. In 2030, the debt to GDP ratio is about 19.5% and is much lower than the 175% of Singapore. Japan stands at 229%. It's 11.5 times higher than us. And in terms of IMF, it's about 110%, as it's 1.5 times higher than that in Hong Kong. In 2024, our expenditure to income ratio is 1.2, and it is the lowest among the advanced economies in the world. I have a suggestion. The government may consider issuing no more than $500 billion of inflation-linked bonds, and it should be linked to the pension liability of retired civil servants aged 70 or above, and this will inject a lot of capital into the bond market. Second, we can resolve any emergencies that might come up given the aging population problem. According to IMF, by 2040, population-linked healthcare and welfare expenditure will account for 55% of the operating expenditure of the government, and that would account for 3% of our GDP. Also, retired civil servants should have the choice to transform their capital and inject the capital into vigorating the consumption market. Also, the SAR government should work with BRICS as well as the Asian Development Bank. The two banks I mentioned last year issued $11 billion RMB worth of bonds, and it becomes the biggest Asian bond issuance market. Also, we have to be vigilant. From 2026 to 2030, the bond issuance capital will decrease by 43%. So we have to increase the breadth and depth of the market. This is not just to offer more options. This is also to provide more room for offsetting. Hong Kong is well positioned to become the largest cross-boundary wealth management center. If we focus too much on equity shares, there will be high risks. So Hong Kong will have to provide more bond products to lower the risks in our portfolios. Thirdly, the Kao Yi Chao artificial islands should be back on the agenda. We follow the north-south dual engine pattern for development. In 2026, the expenditure on infrastructure will increase by 9% to $120 billion. I support this. However, in Central, we have no more land left. We see saturation. Kao Yi Chao artificial islands could be an expansion of the CBD in Central. It should be called Eastern Lantau. It should also be called Central CBD in Lantau. There are two underestimated opportunities in the Kao Yi Chao project. It could be turned into an Islamic finance center. As we see great competition with AI, we can make use of the land in Kao Yi Chao. It is a valuable piece of land with competition around the world. China is the biggest energy purchaser, and Islamic countries is the biggest buyer for energy in the world. With buyers and sellers together, we can complete the market. So we should convert the land in Kao Yi Chao to be an Islamic finance center, so that we can turn the $3.5 trillion of value into growth. We should serve our country by making use of Kao Yi Chao. For example, it has great transportation strategic value. It can be the third exit of the international airport in Hong Kong, apart from Tuen Mun and Hong Kong Island. From Central to Kao Yi Chao to the airport, it only takes 20 minutes. So then we can build a link between Central and the airport, which takes about just 20 minutes of traveling time. We should also develop our tourism industry. International Trade Aviation Hub helps create and support 720,000 people in Hong Kong. According to projections, about 60% of the jobs will be affected by the development of AI. I support the upgrading of ERB into Upskill Hong Kong. I hope the government could step up the use of AI, and that would help strengthen sustainability. We should safeguard these pillars in order to safeguard income earners' jobs. Also, we see greater capacity in our tourism industry. The SAR government should ask the central government to open up 38 cities with express rail link as well as flights to Hong Kong. We can also expand the single visa multiple entry scheme to Beijing, Shanghai, Tianjin, as well as Chongqing. Your time is up. Mr. Chang Pak-chi. President, we see rapid change in the international landscape and geopolitical situation. Food safety is an important strategy. The local fisheries and agriculture industries' stable supply will have to do with the livelihood of Hong Kong. I support the Appropriation Bill 2026. And I will speak on the concerns of the local A&F industry. According to the budget, there is the Sustainable Fisheries and Agriculture Development Blueprint, and funding will be earmarked for the development of the ANF industry. We need our marine ecosystem to build these industries. And we must integrate into the modern development in order to make sure that we can strike a balance of our ecosystem. In terms of upgrading, it is mentioned in the budget that the new mariculture or new fish culture zone in Wang Chuk Kok Hoi as well as Mias Bay have already been opened up, and there are measures to support the R&D of fish fry. The newly developed kind of fish fry could withstand the climate change as well as the volatility of pH level in water. And 1 year of production could exceed the production of traditional fish fry. Our target is that within 15 years, the mariculture production will increase by tenfold. And in order to achieve that, we need breakthroughs in technologies. The government must continue to dedicate resources to make sure that the R&D outcomes could be transformed, and that we need a complete industrial chain. The government can make use of big data as well as AI. We can also learn from international cooperation societies to improve the industrial collaborative mechanism so that the local fisheries and agricultural products can be more competitive, and this is an important step for us to move towards high-quality development. Speaking of ANF industry development, I must mention one thing that distresses the industry, that is illegal fishing. The police have intercepted a number of times near Lamma Island as well as Sheku Chau illegal vessels engaged in illegal fishing. Since 2012, Hong Kong has already banned the use of illegal fishing nets as well as cages. These pose harm to the marine ecosystem. However, as of today, there are still many illegal fishing vessels in Hong Kong waters, and that affect the livelihood as well as resources of Hong Kong. At night time, there are also collisions of these illegal fishing vessels. I hope the government could step up the number of patrols and make use of technologies to enhance law enforcement. The government should consider imposing greater penalty to create deterrence so as to safeguard resources for the local fishery industry. Currently, the government is working in full steam to develop the northern metropolis. We have to think about how we can balance conservation with development. I hope that when the government is planning for large-scale projects, it should work with the ANF industry. We should make use of modern agriculture technologies. Through proactive conservation, we can better manage our fish ponds as well as the buffer zones nearby. This kind of model can help conserve biodiversity as well as improve ecological connectivity. And we should have higher awareness of conservation in this regard. Last year, the government rolled out the Hong Kong Biodiversity Action Plan. And we have to explore endangered species as well as their habitats, as well as the interaction between the two. We have to make use of traditional knowledge as well as resources. In the long run, we should protect the professional expertise of local fishermen. In this respect, I think there needs to be a mechanism in place to invite representatives from local industries as well as community organizations. We need local or community conservation schemes. so that we can work with members of the ANF industries together to manage our ecosystem and to ensure biodiversity. I'd like to talk about refuse on the sea. It does not only harm or damage coral reefs as well as habitats of marine lives, it also would cause distress to marine lives. Over the past 3 years, the Marine Department received over 2,000 metric tons of refuse on the sea. I hope the government could study making use of vessels to recycle the refuse on the sea. As we give out subsidies to fishermen, we should also help protect the marine ecosystem. On marine ecosystem, Mears Bay last December was graded as a case of beautiful bay of our country, and it is the first time that it got such accreditation from our country. Thanks to the years of efforts of us conserving the marine ecosystem, we got this accolade. Also, we should develop tourism industry. This will help generate revenue and allow locals as well as tourists to experience the charm of our nature. And this way we can enhance the awareness of conserving nature as well. And the Agri Enjoy scheme as well as the Fish Enjoy scheme are one of some examples. In Q3 this year, the government will organize a leisure fishery expo. I look forward to this event. I hope the government could grasp this momentum and strengthen its publicity on social media platforms so that it could help develop more products. The government should, after the expo, continue to provide matching services so as to develop more itineraries as well as relevant tourism products. In the meantime, we all have the responsibility to safeguard our nature, to lower the impact brought by tourists. Lastly, on the competitiveness of our ANF products, this year the government will roll out a unified brand of agricultural and fisheries products. It will consolidate the quality farms and fishery farms in Hong Kong. The government will earmark $15 million and commission the Hong Kong Quality Assurance Agency to carry out the project. There are 350 places for the registration of the agricultural products in Hong Kong. I support the scheme. In order for the unified brand to be successful, sales and promotion would be key. The government should proactively liaise with hotels as well as chain restaurants and schools and meal suppliers to make use of the brand so that we will get enough procurement and orders for this brand once it is rolled out. That way, our F&B industry can benefit as well. We should revive the ANF industries in Hong Kong. I believe that the government as well as the relevant sectors have already forged a consensus. As long as we move steadily to build the industries, we will be able to, under the premise of ensuring food safety, achieve sustainability in these two industries. I so submit. Thank you.
Mr. Chen Xiuhong. Thank you, Madam President. I speak in support of the Appropriation Bill 2026. I am glad to see that the administration have been dovetailing with the National 15th Five-Year Plan. It is said in the budget that we will empower the development of Hong Kong with finance and promote the high-quality development of economy. I'm glad that the Financial Secretary has taken on board many of my suggestions, say, for example, reinforcing the development of INT, promotion of artificial intelligence, deepen integration into the Greater Bay Area, developing in Hong Kong Park in the Northern Metropolis, developing Santin Technopole at Hong Shui Q, and promote the interconvergence with the mainland standards. In the 15th Five-Year Plan, it is said that we need to promote Hong Kong's economy and play roles as a super connector. I think that we need to make good use of our own advantages and resources. We need to focus on our resources and work with other cities in the Greater Bay Area so that we can promote AI, autonomous driving, low altitude economy, strategic industries as such. We need to work with mainland enterprises so that we can go global together and establish Hong Kong as the first choice platform for going global. In the past, the government have been promoting various schemes to boost the development of INT in various districts. This has driven a prosperous development of the startup ecosystem, but the R&D efforts was fragmented. Given the rising competition, the strategy may not be enough to support long-term development. I hope that the government will establish a all-rounded coordination mechanism. We can learn from what we have established, the R&D Center for AI, so that we can have a coordination mechanism so that there will not be any duplication of R&D resources or any internal competition within the industry. I hope that the government will promote this drone traffic management system in the first half of this year. Through this sandbox system, we can test out use cases and accumulate data. And I think that we have to look into the possibility of having cross-boundary logistics drones with the mainland. And this is how we can develop the low-altitude economy. Our edges with our common law system and our convergence with international standards. So I think that we have to work with the mainland to develop an international set of systems or standards so that we can promote it overseas. This is how we can help mainland enterprises go global. Finance empowerment is the new way to go to develop low-altitude economy. I think that the government should give full play to our edge as an international financial center and offer a tailored financing solutions for mainland enterprises and develop cross-boundary financial products. We need to develop cross-boundary insurance products. Guangdong developed these 12 policies for low-altitude economy that cover banking, insurance, and many targeted financial products. April last year, Shenzhen Qianhai Administrator also seek advice on the establishment of a fast-track channel with Hong Kong EX. This is how we can play a role as a super connector and help mainland low-altitude enterprises go global. And this is how we can contribute to our country. Madam President, I support the government in speeding up autonomous driving in Hong Kong, and I think that Hong Kong can serve as a platform to allow mainland enterprises go global. In the Hong Kong airport, we're going to have the first project on autonomous driving. I'm glad to see that, and I'm also encouraged to see that the autonomous driving working group is going to introduce trial projects in the northern metropolis. I think that we need to implement that as soon as possible so that we can combine the data of left-hand drive and right-hand drive markets to give full play to our role as a super connector. We can establish this going global model of having Hong Kong as a certification platform with Chinese technology. To promote long-term development of autonomous driving, I think that we need to establish an industry fund to reinforce our R&D capabilities, and I think that we need to offer tax concessions for R&D expenditure on autonomous driving. We also need more facilities to support top-notch enterprises to come to Hong Kong to establish their R&D centers or headquarters here. In recent years, the war in the Middle East has driven up our oil prices. The SAR government have rolled out short-term measures to subsidize commercial vehicles using diesel fuel. But in order to achieve this carbon neutrality goal in 2050, there is need for us to develop other new energy. Regarding road transport, the government rolled out the one-for-one replacement scheme for owners to replace their diesel vehicles to EV. As at February this year, we have over 150,000 EVs in Hong Kong that account for about 25% of the total number of cars we have. The one-for-one scheme will end in March this year. The government explained that's because the technology of EV is mature and EVs are very competitive. Despite that, in this year's budget, the first registration tax for commercial vehicles, electronic motorcycles are tax deductible. Last year, we already put in place these policies on LNG and green methanol. In recent years, the government has signed with the Zhanjiang Provisional Government a memorandum of understanding on green vessel bunkering. So I think that this will help Hong Kong develop into a green bunkering center. Apart from that, the government within this year is going to complete the feasibility study on hydrogen. So I think that the result will propel Hong Kong into a green center. Now I'd like to talk about the transfer of foreign exchange fund to the government. Well, without affecting the stability of our currency system and financial system, the government is going to transfer every year $75 billion to the CWRF to support infrastructure's development in Hong Kong. Developing in the Northern Metropolis is investing in our future. So I think that this move will drive our economy and attract more talents to come to Hong Kong. In turn, this will increase our tax revenues and inject impetus into our economy. This will also boost confidence of investors in Hong Kong. I support the Appropriation Bill 2025, or rather 2026. Mr. Rock Chen. Madam President, I speak in support of the Appropriation Bill 2026. First of all, I thank the Financial Secretary and the administration for, over the past year, given the challenges in global economy, showing their capabilities. We recorded $51.3 billion of surplus in our operating account. We have maintained our credit rating, and this has given us solid foundation for further growth. Given our limited resources, the government have rolled out many relief measures to take care of our people and SMEs. Now, in the 2025-2026 financial year, 100% of the salary tax have been relaxed and deducted, and there is also rates concessions for people receiving a CSSA or old age allowance. An extra 1 month allowance have been given. So all these measures show that when the government is trying to cut expenses, care for the people. So I think that this budget is the result of the efforts of the people and the government. I support it. In this year's budget, the Financial Secretary has taken on board many suggestions of mine and my political party. We have established this strategic positioning of empowering, driving high-quality inclusive growth with innovation and finance. I'm glad that the Financial Secretary is going to offer tax concessions for gold trading and settlement. This will cater to the needs of many countries along the Belt and Road, and by establishing a gold central clearing system, we can lower the transaction risks and enhance effectiveness and efficiency. We can also make use of the commodities ecosystem to promote offshore renminbi and its internationalization. The budget also offers tax deductions for family offices. This has always been what I am advocating for. This is how we can dovetail with the national 15th five-year plan so that we can become a global leading international asset and wealth management center. Hong Kong as the largest offshore renminbi business hub, I think that we need to promote the liquidity of offshore renminbi and increase the diversity of renminbi-denominated products. I think that we need to develop more renminbi-denominated equity trading counter and bond market. And we need to play a greater role in offering cross-boundary payment system. As the government is preparing for the Hong Kong's five-year plan, I think that they should invite financial regulators, banks, equity companies, insurance, securities, practitioners to get advice so that we can dovetail with the national 15th five-year plan. As many mainland enterprises are going global, I think that we need to establish a dedicated team in other countries to work with professional service sectors in Hong Kong so that we can offer one-stop support services covering, say, legal services, tax, finance, so on and so forth for enterprises that want to go global. And I think that we also need to establish a CTC in Hong Kong and offer high-quality service so that we can build an international brand. And by this, we can become a going global headquarters under the dual circulation strategy of our country. Regarding Northern Metropolis, I'm glad that the government is adopting this model of large-scale land disposal. This will allow us to introduce market resources in a more flexible manner. Now, on land planning, I hope that the government will establish the functions and positionings of different districts to avoid duplication so that we can achieve our goal of having a dual engine of the north and the south. And I also think that we need to develop the aviation markets with the Middle East and South American markets. And we need to leverage on our 3 one-way systems and the added capacity with our second terminals in the airport. I also think that we need to improve our transport facilities. I made a suggestions to our country that we should include the Hong Kong International Airport in the national air railway alliance system. This is how we can offer a one-stop ticketing service to mainland travelers. Given unstable international landscape and the shortage of oil or fuel resources in various countries, many airplane companies have cut their journeys. When that happens, our customers will go to other companies. So I think that the government need to have a comprehensive plan. We need to leverage on our advantage of having the support of our country. We need to make sure that there is stable supply of fuel to the airport and help our airline company out to alleviate their operating pressure. However, this situation also brought about opportunities. The airport in Dubai was affected. I think that we can be proactive in seeking out more customers. We can enhance our aviation capacity for direct flight towards Europe and America. We can also streamline procedures so that we can build Hong Kong into a first choice, reliable transit hub. The government is going to roll out 3 pieces of land for the university town and set aside $10 billion for loan to our tertiary institutions. So I think that the Education Bureau and the ETO should recruit top-notch tertiary institutions to establish their campuses in Hong Kong. We need to develop high value-added products that have market potential. The design of our programs need to dovetail with our national strategies. What students learn in school should be useful when they graduate and start working. And we also need to increase the number of placement or internship hours that they have when they're at school. The budget also mentioned that 2 pieces of land will be set aside for student hostels to respond to the needs and market demand. I think that the government should relax the conditions when they grant their land. I so submit. Thank you.
Mr. Stephen Ho. Thank you, President. I thank the Financial Secretary for delivering this budget titled Driving High-Quality Inclusive Growth with Innovation and Finance. Against the backdrop of global economic uncertainties, this budget has demonstrated the government's prudent fiscal management and commitment. In order to take forward diversified development, we need to show more resolve so as to unleash the potential and break new grounds in nurturing new and emerging industries. I have a number of suggestions. The first one is something close to my heart. It's about marine economy. We need to break away from the pattern of gray recycling and put more value on blue recycling. The 15th five-year plan already puts forward building our country into a strong marine nation. We need to develop the relevant industries. We need to grasp the opportunities because otherwise we'll be lagging behind. We are gifted with this harbor, and to this day, the government has not placed sufficient emphasis on developing marine economy, and we are lagging behind. That is because of the insufficient planning efforts made in the past. Now, we could not plug loopholes in the past. Now, for example, we have typhoon shelters, but we manage typhoon shelters in a way similar to the management we had in the 60s and 70s. Now, there are different berths. President, you are also concerned about typhoon shelters, right? We have yachts, fishing boats, and vessels all crammed in typhoon shelters, and it's a lawless zone. Some typhoon shelters are actually controlled by triad and gangs. In fact, that used to be the case in Kwun Tong. I hope the government can pay more attention to the Aberdeen Typhoon Shelter. The other point is about market domination, such as oil prices. In fact, we're talking about some dozen or $20 per liter onshore, but at sea we're talking about $950 to $2,200 per barrel, and this is exactly how they dominate the markets. There is no way out, and this causes an escalation of costs. We need to plan ahead and provide good hardware and software support for the maritime industry. Now, when it comes to the marine economy, it's not just about vessels plying the sea. We need to have strong support for facilities onshore as well, so as to adopt an intermodal mode. Now, when it comes to yachts, especially yacht tourism, we cannot just rely on berths in marinas. We need to set up temporary berthing areas in light of the increased demand from tourism. Now, for example, we have the Mary House in Stanley. It's now left idle. We can work with the private sector and build a 1-hour yacht tourism circle. This is something we need to do, and we need good planning and good support for green shipping. Now, as I said, we haven't even tackled the problem of fuel prices. So in light, I believe that the government plans for something on a bigger scale, but for vessels plying at sea at the moment, for medium and small size boats and vessels, I don't think they can be converted into electric ones in the short run. So the government must draw up a roadmap to help them transform and reduce marine emission. And again, proper planning is required. The other point is we need to develop new quality productive forces at sea. We need to optimize the planning. At the moment, we rely on marina clubs to provide the facilities. Now, it's akin to a land sale exercise. We don't have a lot of space at sea, and if you sell off that space to a marina, then there will be limited opportunities for the public to participate. And that's not aligning with your vision. Say if a member of the public would like to go yachting, then they are only given the basic facility of landing steps or piers such as the Sai Kung Pier. And then in Sai Kung, as I said, we have people touting for business. They have they sort of hold an umbrella, and then they keep touting for, say, a boat trip for $168. Now we need to consolidate the resources, especially near the waterfront, so that individual operators can have something to hold on to, so that there is greater room for industrial development and healthy competition in the industry. So we should break away from the old model. NGOs should be allowed to operate marina clubs with the private sector, so that sessions can be made available for the public to use the services. This is just like the golf club being criticized for being an independent kingdom, and it was in a turmoil in a previous turmoil. The golf course should be used for public housing development, according to some. And that is why we need to adopt some new thinking and reform the mode of managing marinas. Now, when it comes to food economy, we need to have clear goals in attracting businesses. Now, for the Oasis, it's given an estimate of $62 million in 2026-27 without KPIs. It's very difficult to gauge the effectiveness of their work, and public money is used. There hasn't been any proper planning since 2021, despite some active responses. So there should be a green channel for enterprises to go abroad by sea so that our country's food products can be exported. We do have the advantage of having a common law system. We have the internationally recognized food safety standards as well. And we have the Hong Kong brand, and we're good at the certification and testing services. So together with professional services, we can win the trust of overseas partners. For example, since 2019, Guangxi has been collaborating with institutions in Hong Kong, and we help test and certify over 1,000 products in 356 projects. In fact, we can provide more support. The government should put in more efforts so as to benefit more provinces and cities. Now, the next point is about wholesale markets. We have the markets in Cheung Sha Wan. We also have traditional markets, and they're in aging communities with not enough footfall. So instead of putting forward minor amendments, we should revamp the whole system and introduce a new ecosystem. For example, for the waterfront promenade section of the Cheung Sha Wan wholesale market, we should set up a direct sale area of farm and fishery produce. And we can also have restaurants nearby to process the products. Now, we understand why registration is required for entering the fish market or the wholesale market because of the triad problem. But nowadays, maybe we can learn from Tsukiji in Japan, and that whilst I respect the registration system, can we also leverage on technology so as to increase footfall and revitalize the traditional markets so that we can encourage the public to go there instead of leaving this place as something of an enigma, because we need to do something about the wholesale markets. I hope that they can be revitalized so that members of the public will have a better understanding of the infrastructure facility. Now, I have 1 minute left. I'd like to talk about the bottleneck to I&T development. Now, in terms of cleaning efforts, we have put in a lot of resources. We have the auto cleaning robots. We spent $2.58 million to test the robot for 10 months. The tests are still ongoing. The crux is that is the outsourcing mechanism of the FEHD. There is a minimum manpower requirement in the tender documents, and that is why we are left with this situation. I'm not happy with the administration's answer. Please go back and see how you can better leverage on technologies. Now, finally, be it the policy address or the budget, the ultimate goal is to allow members of the public a share of the economic success. This is the number one priority of the government. Next, Mr. Adrian Ho. Thank you, President. I thank the FS for delivering this year's budget. This budget has incorporated a number of suggestions of the New People's Party. I'm in full support of this budget. This budget is themed driving high quality inclusive growth with innovation and finance, and we need to actively dovetail with the National 15 5-year plan. Against the current economic backdrop, we need to continue to invest in the future. While I acknowledge the government's efforts in upgrading and transforming the economic structure, and we also need to nurture talents and industries and connect to the world. In terms of long-term competitiveness of Hong Kong, these are crucial matters. But when it comes to livelihood matters, we only have moderate relief measures, but in light of the long-term development needs, I support the allocation of resources in such a manner. Now, I'm concerned about scrapping the one-for-one replacement scheme for electric vehicles. This scheme has been very popular among the public. It's also very important in phasing out diesel and petrol vehicles and popularizing electric vehicles. Now, after the announcement of the cancellation of this scheme, there have been criticisms from the public. A progressive approach should be taken instead. Many people have bought private cars to look after their families, so there is an actual need here. just by scrapping the tax incentive, the government may not be able to encourage people to switch to electric vehicles. Some prospective owners may change their mind from buying an electric vehicle to buying another fun fuel-propelled private car. And that is a departure from the overall direction of carbon emission reduction in Hong Kong. As the budget has mentioned, our goal is to reach carbon neutrality by 2050. We also plan to cut carbon emission by 2035 by half by 2035 comparing to the 2005 peak. So it's very crucial that this scheme continues for the purpose of popularizing EVs. Now, as for commercial vehicles, motorcycles, tricycles, they will continue to enjoy the first registration tax waivers. This shows that the government still attaches a lot of importance to promoting electric vehicles. Now, I wonder if our pace of meeting carbon neutrality goal will be relaxed as a result of scrapping the tax incentive in one go. Now, the government once explained that the new fuel-propelled private cars first registration will come to an end in 2035. And the government also mentioned once that this could be advanced to 2030. That means in 4 years' time. Now, with the help of this one-for-one policy, the number of newly registered fuel-propelled private cars dropped quite drastically from 40,000 cars in 2018 to just 13,000 last year. There are different car makers which have begun to introduce different EV models. They would like to get a bigger market share. Now, it's questionable whether their efforts would come to a waste with the scrapping of this scheme. The budget also refers to $4 billion of additional revenue, being the FRT, being the first registration tax. From the overall fiscal perspective, this may not be a very important sum. Now, I think the government should closely monitor the situation. After scrapping the one-for-one scheme, the government should consider, for example, the overall sales figures of EVs and the number of newly registered fuel-propelled cars, as well as the overall changes in private car growth. If need be, adjustments should be made. Now, of course, this policy also closely relates to fuel costs. If in the future more prospective car owners switch back to fuel-propelled cars instead, then the fluctuations in international oil prices because of tension in the Middle East will cause huge financial pressure on not only the public but the logistics industry and the transportation and other sectors. Now, I'm happy to learn that earlier the government has taken a responsive action by putting forward a subsidy scheme totaling $1.8 billion so as to lift the financial pressure of enterprises. Now, this is a short-term relief measure. In the long run, it's not sustainable. The petrol tax in Hong Kong has not been adjusted since 1998, and it's not realistic to further lower the tax rate or the duty rate. I think the relevant departments should conduct a detailed study on why our oil prices remain close to the highest among the world. We should have regard to market competition to make sure that there is a level playing field and to make sure that the prices are kept at a reasonable level. I'd like to turn to Northern Metropolis. The Northern Metropolis will be a very important economic driver of Hong Kong in the future. it is crucial that the northern metropolis is developed in an efficient manner. When it comes to urban development, there have been a lot of built-up areas. It's more complex, but when it comes to the northern metropolis, we can take forward a large-scale development in a strategic manner so as to fulfill some major missions through enacting dedicated legislation so that we can break rules and expedite the vetting process. We can also combine the government's efforts with the market capacity. I think this is a reasonable suggestion. I hope that the dedicated legislation can be tabled in the Council as quickly as possible so as to take forward the development of Northern Metropolis. On the whole, I support this budget. At the same time, I hope that the administration will continue to review the situation and enhance the policy measures so that whilst improving the public office, we can accurately respond to the public needs.
Mr. Lingchek, President, I speak in support of the Appropriation Bill 2026. The Financial Secretary announced the 2026-27 budget. It is a visionary budget. With improvement of the government fiscal position, on one hand, this budget focuses on the use of technology to drive financial development. On the other hand, it dovetails with the national strategy to promote low-altitude economy and other industries. The budget did not forget about the needs of the grassroots, including the elderly. There are concrete measures for relieving the burden of our people. Today, I'm going to focus on the welfare measures, including the shortcomings of measures that benefit the elderly. I'll also talk about the medical fee reform as well as the lifting of EV tax incentives. Now I'd like to speak on behalf of the DAB. We all know that there is rapid aging population in Hong Kong. It is expected that by 2046, 1 out of 3 people in Hong Kong will be an elderly. In the Eastern District, the median age is 52, and there are elderly people. The population is 160,000. Many people, they have worked so hard for their whole lives, but there is not enough support from the government when they get old. First, on the healthcare front, starting from this year, the government has increased the fee of the A&E services. For those aged 75 or above and getting elderly allowance, they will be waived from the medical fee. However, those aged between 65 and 74, and they are getting the old age allowance, but they aren't getting the fee waiver. We're worried that they don't want to spend money, and therefore they are hesitant about seeing the doctor. And they might suffer with a deteriorating health condition. I call upon the government to expand the eligibility of the medical waiver to those aged below 74 and those who are getting the old age living allowance. We don't want to see a vicious cycle in terms of increasing the healthcare expenditure. Second, we have to devote more resources for elderly services. Aging in place is a government strategy, but there aren't enough support measures and facilities. For home-based care services, there are less than 15,000 places. Some elderly people have to wait as long as 14 months. An elderly person who has mobility difficulty and cannot take care of himself, he has to wait for more than a year for such support. How can this elderly age in place? So I hope that there could be more elderly services on the market, but the government must set more concrete targets and indicators. It should set up standards for organizations that provide such services. Also, there should be rates concession as well as more building maintenance subsidies. Many elderly people, they spend their life savings on the mortgage of one apartment, and after they've retired, they no longer get any income. There are 2/4 of a rate, and Each quarter, the rate charged by the government is a pressure for the elderly. I hope there could be income as well as asset tax dedicated for the elderly so that elderly people who meet the eligibility could be exempted from paying the rates. Building maintenance is another issue. A lot of elderly people have to take their life saving to pay for building maintenance projects. I welcome the review of the government on the Operation Building Bright 2.0. $3 billion are earmarked for the scheme, and this responds to the call of the DAB. We look forward to discussing the details with the administration so as to finalize the details for the second round of the scheme. Also, there is the revised $2 transport concession. We understand that the government wants to make sure sustainable fiscal position, and that's why it has revised the concession scheme. However, for longer routes, it is more expensive for elderly people. For those who live in the remote areas, they are facing fare hikes from ferry operators as well. If it is too costly to travel to other districts, elderly people might be trapped on the outlying islands. The Transport Department must serve as a gatekeeper to make sure that bus companies wouldn't make use of the scheme to force elderly people to pay more for their bus fares. Also, the government has to consider the affordability of elderly people, and transport operators must take up greater social responsibility. There should be sectional fares imposed on elderly travelers. In the long run, the government shouldn't subsidize bus companies for services that they did not provide. I represent the Hong Kong Island East District. I'd like to talk about the development of the harbour front. I welcome the dedicated funding for improving the harbour front, and the Eastern Boardwalk was opened towards the end of last year. From Kennedy Town to Shao Kei Wan, the harbour front is about 13 kilometers long, and this helps improve people's life as well as help revive district economy. However, we have to continue work hard. It's not that we have connect the harbourfront areas and that's the end. Currently, the harbourfront areas are suitable for people to jog as well as to have a run. However, there is a lack of F&B as well as retail facilities. The government should make use of more flexible lease conditions to bring in bazaars as well as food stalls and cultural events, and there should be short-term tenancy for that, so as to revive the economy. Lastly, the government is going to remove the 1-for-1 EV scheme, and this is a mature decision. I, in principle, do not object to this. However, I must stress that removing the scheme doesn't mean that we give up on promoting new energy vehicles. We should continue to phase out diesel-powered vehicles. The government should keep in view the situation after the 1-for-1 scheme is removed. This is to make sure that we won't take a U-turn on our journey to green transformation. Lastly, I support the Appropriation Bill. This is a comprehensive one. It touches on INT, finance, as well as low-altitude economy. There are also tax allowances as well as elderly vouchers. However, it doesn't mean that we should blindly support the budget. We have to manage our finance prudently, and we have to continue to support the underprivileged. I have to stress that with the rapid aging population, our elderly care services are still lagging behind. The medical fee waiver is not covering enough elderly people, and there aren't enough home-based elderly care services. I hope that the FS as well as the director of the relevant bureaus could consider the suggestions that the DAB makes. I speak in support of the Appropriation Bill 2026. Thank you.